And we on Pompey Sound have been looking forward to hearing Steve Bones' summation of what has been. Well, Steve, we'll get to Hull in just a second, but in a sentence, how do you sum up 2024 to 2025?
Well, successful, I think you have to say, because the aim at the start of the season was for Pompey to stay up, and they have done. And they did that with a couple of games to spare. They did that with 5 places in the league table to spare. There's some big teams beneath them in that table. As the manager made reference to after the game on Saturday, he was looking down at Derby, Stoke, Oxford, Luton, Plymouth, Cardiff and what have you, and that's good to finish above some of those teams. So it's mission accomplished, I think. It was a bit of a rocky ride at times. There were times where we thought it was going to go wrong and we were going to go down straight back from where we came from, but kept the spirit going, didn't we? Kept the faith and got it done. Overall I think you have to say it's a success, and I think the atmosphere at those last couple of games kind of showed that that's what most people think. I don't think anyone was unhappy with the league position of 16th. I think if you'd offered it to 100 fans before kick-off in August, 99 would probably have said yes please, we're happy to finish 16th. There would have been one who might have said no, we should be higher than that. I predicted that we'd finish 9th before it all started, but that was just me being over-optimistic as usual.
I think we were only about 2 or 3 points off 9th, Four or 5.
Yeah, we were very close to getting in that mid-table pack, weren't we, a number of times. Yeah. And then every time we almost got into it, we lost an away game, which was frustrating. So that's the big thing to look at next season, isn't it, without jumping ahead too much yet. We need to same home form, but a little bit better on the road next season.
Okay.
Overall happy with how we did.
Good. At the risk of drifting into executive management speak, let's drill down into the whole season in a little bit. But first of all, the Hull game, the last day of the season, the sun was sort of in and out. Yeah. How did you read the day?
It was an end of season in E sort of day for us, wasn't it? I know Hull had everything to play for, and I thought they played okay. I wasn't overly impressed with Hull, but they came and got what they needed. It was close, wasn't it? If things had gone differently elsewhere, they could still have gone down at that point. But they had chances to win it as well, so they could have wrapped it up before the end. For us, though, I think it was a little bit like you could tell it was the last game of the season, and you could tell there was nothing much riding on it. I just thought at the start of the second half, when we came back and got that terrific finish by Sadie to equalise, I thought we might go on and win it quite handsomely after that. But it didn't really happen, did it? There wasn't a great amount of intensity after that. I thought we played okay, but I didn't think it was our best performance of the season by a long way. And we've had a few home games like that, haven't we? We've had a few where we've ended up drawing, and we thought we might have won them. But in the context of the day, it was fine. I think it was important not to lose. I thought it was some nice scenes afterwards with the players and their families going round.
Heartwarming.
We all said our farewells for the summer to them, and all drifted off home again. And I always, after the last game, I'm always ready for a little break from it. But then, come next week, you ask me next week, I'll be looking for the fixtures and wondering when the first friendly's going to be and everything else, because you soon get bored of no football, don't you? Sometimes you need no football. I think you have to have a little break from it, but you can get bored of it as well. But no, it was a reasonable day. It's not going to live long in the memory, is it, as a final day? But it was reasonable.
No,
there was happy.
I find if I'm not that bothered about the result, I can watch things I wouldn't normally watch. And I had
that's true.
I kept my eyes on Conor Ogilvie for a part of the game, and I saw him going forward and staying forward, which was interesting.
Yeah, he does like it up there, doesn't he?
But I kept my eyes on Freddie Potts as well, and this man does not do more than 2 touches if he can avoid it. He's control pass every time.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's him or his dad or the club. But it just seemed to me to be a conscious technique.
Could be a bit of everything, couldn't it? Probably his dad has had an influence in that, him being that sort of player. but he must have come through. If he's at the West Ham academy, that's a good level. That's a good level of football to be at as a youngster. That must be, to an extent, being sort of coached into him. The coaches will have seen what type of player he is, what his strengths are, what his stature is like, and so on, and how he fits into a team. And they must have encouraged that from him, I would think. But he does it very well. He's such a tidy player. He doesn't generally give the ball away, does he?
No, he knows what he's going to do with it before he gets it.
Yeah,
long before he gets it. He's constantly thinking, he's free. I'll take it back across the pitch. I'll go forward with this one. This is just going to have to go back to the centre half.
Yeah, you often see him coming back. If one of the centre halves has got it and doesn't appear to know what to do with it, he will be the one sort of running back towards them, and he'll know what his next pass is, as you say, before he's had to make it. I doubt whether we'll see him next season. I don't think he'll be back here. I think West Ham will probably want to use him and give him a bit of first team experience. I might be wrong, and you'd hope that if West Ham are going to send him anywhere, and if he's allowed to go anywhere, we would be top of the list.
Yeah.
But I'd be surprised if we see him back here.
Now, Steve and I are talking on the Thursday after the Hull game, and we'll speak to Steve next in a week's time. We'll be playing this out through the week, and of course it's available as a podcast. Hello if you're listening to the podcast. So we do not know who's been released and who's been retained. We've heard rumours, and we're not going to pass them on. But what do we think? What would you do if you were John Messino about Killett, the keeper, Ben Killett?
Yeah, not sure really. I wasn't that impressed with him on Saturday. He made a couple of saves that were okay, and you couldn't blame him for the goal. I didn't think his distribution was all that good. I thought a couple of times he looked a little bit panicky when he had the ball at his feet. A couple of times his kicks went straight out of play, didn't they? He was given 2 games there at the end of the season, presumably for the manager to have a good look at him in a match situation, in a championship situation, and I'm not sure he would have done enough to earn a new deal. We will need 3 goalkeepers next season. So we've got Schmid, we've got Archer, who you would think who is still under contract, and you would think will stay as sort of number 2. You've got Toby Stewart, who's been in and out on loan and has done, just at the back end of the season, done very well at Crawley Town in League One. Won 3 out of 4 games with them, kept Birmingham out with a clean sheet. So he might come into the reckoning to be one of the 3 on the staff and not loaned out. Yeah, equally, he might be loaned out again. He might go out to League One for the season. He might go to Crawley for the whole season. You don't know. But I'm not sure about Killip.
No. Okay, I think you've got that one summed up. A number of people groaned at a couple of his clearances that really didn't pass muster, did they?
Convinced, did they?
But you can work on that, I feel. Am I right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, he's still at an age where he can improve. But how long do you give? Whether it's a goalkeeper or an outfield player. If you give a player a chance, you look at them in training over quite a long period as to what they can do. You play them in a couple of games, and you'd think, well, they're not quite up to what we need. How long do you give them to improve under your sort of tutelage? Or do you move them on and look for someone instead who's ready, who is already better than they are? It's harsh world, isn't it? It's a dog eat dog, and Ben Killett will know that. I'm sure if he is released by Pompey, he'll get a chance somewhere else, maybe at League 1 or 2 level.
He's prepared to be a hard man, isn't he, John Messino? I mean, he's nice as pie. Yes. Very obliging to journalists. I'm sure he's a good father figure and elder brother figure to all of the players. He gets that exactly right. But if he has to cut somebody off below the knees, then he will.
And you have to in football. I think you have to have that ruthless streak in as a football manager, don't you? Particularly at the top level. You can't. You're not there to be just their friends, are you? You're there to be their mentors, but you're not there to give chances to people who don't really deserve it. He's shown in some of his selection decisions over the season that's the case, and he's shown. You could, on the goalkeeping side of things, letting Will Norris go after bringing Schmidt in to replace him.
That was hard, wasn't it? It was a hard, thick-skinned thing to do, but it had to be done.
showed what he and the club are willing to do in order to bring about what they think is the best and strongest squad to go forward and to progress.
Now, just a few minutes before we spoke this afternoon, Steve, I jumped on my phone just to see if there was any news about those released and those retained, and I saw that John Messino is saying that the target next year is to avoid being part of any kind of relegation dogfight.
Yes, I've seen
Which sounds
that.
like he's saying that our ambition is to finish and permanently be around about 12th to 15th.
Yeah.
Would that do you?
Yeah. I think that's kind of the minimum that people expect, really, for next season. I think we've shown progression this season in that we've come from League One into the Championship and survived. But you don't want to keep doing the same thing every year. You want to progress year on year. I don't think anyone expects us to finish in the top 6 next year. Some will, but that's probably a bit unrealistic. Depends who we sign, doesn't it? You know, that'll get hopes up probably. But yeah, I think 12th to 15th, or even I don't know, 10th to 14th.
Okay,
maybe where we should. I know it's splitting hairs a little bit, but you know, if you can just be in that pack, that mid-table pack that is not really looking over their shoulder all season, it's different. Gives a different feel to the season, doesn't it? You're if anything, you're looking up and you're thinking, right, would a run of 3 or 4 wins in a row take us into the fight for the last playoff place? Things like that, which would get a bit of excitement going. I suppose the warning sign, though, if you are in that mid-table pack, comes from Preston, doesn't it? Because they went through almost all season being 14th, and I think they were up to 12th at one stage, and they ended up on the last day in danger of relegation. You know, if you have a bad run of form at the wrong time, mid-table is not necessarily that safe. It's such a competitive division, that Championship, as we've talked about over the season. You know,
right.
not a lot between Hull, who finished 21st, one place above the relegation zone, and Blackburn, who finished 7th. You know, one place outside the playoffs. 17 points between those two. Which I know is, 17 points is 17 points, but you go back 6 weeks or 8 weeks before the end of the season, and those two sides could have ended up next to each other in the table. So, but yeah, Mousinho is quite right to want to avoid the dogfight. People will hope that we do, and if that means being in mid-table and sloshing around from between 15th and 12th or a little bit higher, I think most people would see that as progress.
So what you're saying is next season, as far as you're concerned, you would be quite happy to have a different type of white-knuckle ride.
Yes. Yeah, you always want a little bit of jeopardy and excitement, don't you? You don't want to be...
And hopes
12th.
And dreams, and hopes and dreams as well.
You don't want to be 12th all season, do you, with no danger of going up or down?
But as you pointed out, if you're... Because you often go in groups of 3 games, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So there we are, we're 12th. Suddenly we win 3, 2 at home and 1 away.
Yeah.
And we're 6th.
Yeah, that's right. Then the expectations would go up, wouldn't they? And people would start to talk.
The manager would have to put a damper on it, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would. I'm sure he would. Yeah, a long way to go, and a lot of football to be played. He would say, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
And you could drop. You lose the next 3, and you're back down to 12th, aren't you? You lose a couple after that, and you're down to 15th, and you're in the Preston. You're in the Preston spot. So I think it would be a close division again. You know, people are talking about Wrexham and Birmingham coming up and probably spending a bit of money and doing okay. We don't know who's going to come up in the playoffs yet. We've got the 3 who went up last year coming back down: Ipswich, Leicester, Southampton. People think those 3 will all automatically do well. I'm not so sure 1 or 2 of them will.
No,
but it'll be, and then you've also got 3 of the sides who are going to be in this year's playoffs who will still be there. You know, Sheffield United, Sunderland, Coventry, Bristol City. Only one of those is going up. So there'll be some strong sides again. There'll be some big spending sides again. It's just a case of how we jostle for position among them. Be interesting to see how it pans out, as ever.
I better give you 10 seconds to think about this one, because I needed it, but I've got one. So
Okay.
an example.
Right.
So I'll do mine, but first of all, I'll tell you what it is. I just wonder if you picked up down the season any sort of abiding little quirky flashbulb memories of things that perhaps summed a player up, or perhaps summed up the highs and lows of being a Pompey fan. You know, little moments that are almost insignificant and yet they speak volumes. And mine is the home game where we were winding the clock down, and Matt Ritchie was coaching Christian Sadie on how to basically be a human barricade.
Yeah, which he did very well, didn't he?
And he did, and it was very enjoyable because we were enjoying ourselves. We had the ball in their corner, and they were getting annoyed, and Sadie was just being magnificent on our behalf. So
yeah,
that at the moment is a standout little quirky moment for me.
Yeah.
I wonder if you can conjure any up.
I mean, I'll avoid the obvious one, because the obvious one for me is the day we've talked about many times, the day when Colby was named on the bench and came on and scored the penalty. And that will be most people. You know, if you asked 100 fans which one game of the season will they remember beyond this season, I think that would be one of them. I think the one for me, and it wouldn't be a particular moment in the game, but it would be the game itself, was when we played at home to Cardiff in February. Mm-hmm. We were on quite good form at home, although we then stuttered a little bit in losing to Millwall in the previous home game. It might have been the previous home game, there might have been one in between. And then we'd gone away to Sheffield United, played really well, but lost another away game. So we were then at home to Cardiff on the Tuesday night after that, and it was a really big game in the context of the season and in the context of the relegation zone, because we were still, I think don't know if we were in the bottom three at that point, but we certainly weren't far out of it if we weren't in it. And it really was a must win, and we went 2-0 up after about 20 minutes. Bishop and Shaughnessy scored. It was when Shaughnessy came back in and crashed in a header, just like the old days, just like the glory days of last season. And we all thought, oh, this is okay. You know, we're going to be comfortable here. Put 3 or 4 past Cardiff, and we'll be on our way. And then Cardiff got one back quite soon after we went 2-0 up, I think it was, from memory. And we then had 3/4 of the game to either hang on or go on and win it well, knowing that if we didn't go on and win that game, that would be a major setback, and we'd be right back in the thick of the relegation fight. It wasn't a particularly good game, but it was quite intense. There was a lot of tackles flying in. Crowd were at their best. Crowd were really getting behind the team, and it did finish 2-1. You know, we hung on at 2-1, and I remember coming away that night thinking, yeah, that feels like a turning point.
Yeah, three important points. Yeah.
And then we went on to win our next 2. After that, we went away to Oxford on the Saturday and won at home to QPR, another 2-1. In the next game. I think I've said before that the number of games we won at home by 1 goal was quite impressive, really, because you can be, you know, when you're in the situation we were in, you're 1 goal up at home, really needing to win. You know, Pompey sides of the past have not coped with that sort of pressure. They've let late goals in left, right and centre. But at home, we were quite resolute. But that one sticks in the memory for me.
Yeah, I remember Jose Mourinho being asked after a game. He said, another 1-0 win there, Jose. Does it concern you that some fans are saying, you know, that it's keep winning these games by a narrow margin? And he replied, they will look in the paper on Monday morning and see that we have 3 points.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, I have a lot of sympathy with that. Yeah, I like a 1-0. I think there's a lot to be said for winning by 1 goal sometimes. You don't want to do it every time, but if you do, it shows that you're good at getting a lead and holding on to it. Maybe that's a Mourinho thing as well as a Mourinho thing. Maybe.
Who needs
Mourinho?
We do have Mourinho. It was a bit of an anticlimax the end of the season, don't you think, compared to last season anyway, when we had the Shaughnessy 89th minute goal and we'd won the title, and that was ecstasy. I mean, real ecstasy.
Yeah.
This time we sort of got washed up onto the beach by the tide. Gradually achieving safety.
Yeah, you know, which is what you want, isn't it? But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, we sat there, some of us, with a pen and a piece of paper, trying to work out technically, are we technically not being relegated, or is there a chance that, look, Luton might get 3 points here, but that would mean that then if Cardiff wanted 1, and then the goal difference between us and And I couldn't do it, so in the end I gave up.
It wasn't a clean break, was it? There wasn't a case of Pompey scoring the goal that kept us up.
A goal that kept us up.
That's what you want, isn't
it? That's it. You want a point. You need to go into a game knowing that if you get a point, you will stay up, and then you've got something to go mad about and jump up and down and everything.
And having been to final days of the season where we have needed to win to stay up, and we have done, they're great when they work out the right way, and that's why Pompey fans now still talk about Bradford in 1998 when Johnny Durnin and Sammy Igoe scored and we won 3-1 and stayed up and relegated Man City, and Huddersfield in 1996 when Dion Burton scored and we had to win and we did and we stayed up. We were all over the pitch afterwards. There was a home game as well a few years later against Barnsley where we had to win and did. So people remember those games, and I don't think people will remember the Watford game if that was the one that kept us up in the same way, because it wasn't on the last day. There was no sort of make or break drama in the last minute connected with it. But if you said to anyone at the start of April, how do you want the season to end, do you want Pompey to be safe with a couple of games to spare, we would all of course have said yes please, lapped it up.
I think I was very remiss and didn't forward to you a document that somebody sent to me about salaries in the Championship. I may have mentioned it to you.
You have mentioned it, I think. Yes, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, we pay the least in the Championship.
24th out of 24.
We're bottom of that table, and Leeds at top. They spend, I think, between 6 and 7 times as much as we do.
Yeah,
on players' salaries.
Within one league, that kind of difference is incredible, really, isn't it?
Well, I'm going to try and pin you down on your views on, generally speaking, the relationship between spending money, either on transfers or salaries or both, and going for value for money.
Yeah, you can't say if on the eve of a particular season you were given all the figures for the 24 teams in the league and how much they'd all spent on wages and transfers, and you arranged them in order, with the biggest spenders at the top and the lowest spenders at the bottom. You just can't assume that is the order they're going to finish in the league, because it's not everything. So I think what Pompey have shown in being the lowest spenders but finishing 16th, finishing a third of the way up the table, is that there's much more to it than how much you spend. And it's to do with, yes, value for money is a massive thing, because two clubs could both spend £2 million on a player and pay him exactly the same wages over the course of a season. But clearly one is going to be better than the other, and in football, one of those two players might be twice as good as the other one. There are so many variables once you've spent the money, and once you start spending the money, that it comes down to your staff and your manager, and the way the club is run, and you've got to be smart about it. If you spend that money wisely, which you have to say, on the evidence of where we finished last season, we have done on this occasion, then you're better off than someone who throws money at the project without really looking at what they're spending it on, and ends up with far less value for money. So, I mean, money is a factor in success, and it's a big factor. You have to spend a certain amount to survive in the Championship. You have to spend a bit more to do well. You have to spend even more if you want to go up out of the Championship at the right end. But it's not everything. You can't say if we spend twice as much next season, we'll be twice as good. And it's I think it's a good job that football isn't like that, because then it would be, the cups and leagues would be decided purely on how much money a club had and an owner had, and that would be boring, wouldn't it? We like the smaller spenders coming through and the underdogs coming through and winning things, don't we? At the expense of those who think they can throw money at it.
Let me ask you a question which is rather unfair. It forces you to answer one way or the other,
Okay.
and I know which way I want you to answer, so I'm going to try and force you to answer that way. Do you sometimes get frustrated with a handful of fans who keep screaming their mouth off that the owners need to put their hands in their pockets?
Yes.
Oh, that's a relief.
But I do, because they... Well, you see, what we don't know in detail is how much the owners have spent in terms of year on year increasing their investment and the budget. We don't know what the playing budget is in terms of for wages and transfers. We don't know what the overall investment of the owners is year on year. There was a strong suspicion after last summer and in the early part of this season that they hadn't spent enough. But at the same time, the manager and chief executive were telling us, well, actually, they have spent quite a bit more than they spent last summer, and they've spent what we want them to spend. So, what more can they do? In a way, the owners have to be guided by the staff in that respect, don't they? Could they spend? What it comes down to is, do you think that if the owners keep on increasing their investment and keep on upping the budget year on year, that will lead to better results and a higher position for Pompey? I mean, generally speaking, it probably will. But at the same time, I don't think many fans want them to throw silly money at it to get us into the Premier League and see what happens then. I don't sense much of a push from Pompey's fans, particularly those who remember the Premier League days last time and what happened and how that all ended. I don't sense a big clamour to get into the Premier League. I think people just want to see. They want to see investment. They want to see progress. They want to see good young players coming through and not being sold at the first sort of drop of a hat when a bigger team comes in for them. That's important as well. So, for example, this summer, what people don't want to see is Josh Murphy sold if there's a big money bid for him. Unless it suits him and everybody else, or Callum Lang or anybody like that. So, yes, fans want money spent. The owners have got plenty of money, and the fans want some of that money spent on their club.
Yeah.
But I don't think many fans want being too demanding in wanting millions and millions thrown at it.
It is a form of... Yeah, go on.
But because they could throw millions and millions at it, and that might not get us any further than we are already. And then the owners might think, well, actually, we've spent as much as we're willing to spend. Let's put the club up for sale. And where would we be then? We'd then be at the mercy of who's the next owner going to be and what are they going to do. So I think sometimes you've got to be happy with what you've got.
Yeah, there's so many owners, it seems to me, in the Championship. They like to sort of do a little bit of waving their you-know-whats.
Yes.
And going, hey, you spent £12 million on that guy. I'm going to spend £13 million on some guy. I don't know who he is, but I'm going to...
Yeah, that's
do you remember
right,
that business? Yeah, do you remember that businessman Philip Green, who he was something to do with Next, I think, or something, and he ended up in trouble. But he was spending money when he had it, and he wanted a yacht. And he went to a yacht builder and he said, I'm going to moor it in Monte Carlo or somewhere, he said. And so the bloke said, OK, how many cabins? Do you want a heliport? And he said, I don't care about any of that. I just want it to be 3 feet longer than the current longest yacht in...
Yeah, that is spending money for the sake of it, isn't it?
And you wonder whether some owners who run their clubs from afar, they run their clubs from their... luxury estates in wherever they possibly are. America, possibly Malaysia, I don't know. And they just want to make sure everybody knows that they are big enough to fill their boots. Yeah, it's a status symbol, isn't it, almost, for them. Yeah. Which, for some clubs at some times that might work. That might be great, because that will on occasions that will bring success. But it's not a sustainable thing, is it? And there are plenty of clubs who have had owners like that who have brought a lot of success in a short space of time and then have got fed up with it.
and left the club in a bit of a state
Yeah.
because they'll sell it to the first Tom, Dick or Harry who comes along.
But football gives us lots of excitements, doesn't it? It gives us Shaughnessy's 89th minute winner.
Yeah.
And the ecstasy of that. And it gives us the warm, strong feeling that we've avoided relegation and we're going to be here next year and we can
Yeah.
go on from this. And that's another sort of triumph. But you know what?
Yeah.
Your phone going ping and it means you've got a notification and we've bought somebody.
Yeah.
That
yeah.
is a buzz.
That's the
No
excitement
two
as well.
ways about
Yeah.
it. That is a buzz.
Yeah. And always, I think it always has been in a way. It's just that it's more, these things are more in the public because of social media and so on. It's more of a year-round thing, isn't it? Of, constantly wanting updates. There was a time where the first you knew if Pompey had signed someone would be on the back page of the news the day after they'd signed them. It might be the day before a game or something.
Yeah.
Or on occasions you might actually get to a game on a Saturday and there's a new player in the team who you hadn't known that your team had signed because they'd signed him after Friday's
Who's
paper
that one in
deadline.
number 7 shirt?
Yeah,
Who's that?
yeah. That will soon be what Pompey fans this summer are wanting to hear about, isn't it? We'll get the retained list and the released list out of the way.
Yes.
And then as soon as Pompey fans have had that news and digested that and got used to who they're not seeing next season and who they are seeing next season, there will be people saying, right, have we signed anyone yet? Have we signed? When are we signing someone? And obviously we can't yet because the transfer window doesn't open, I think, until a week or so into June, isn't it? Is it the 10th of June or something?
I should have looked it up. I'm afraid you're ahead of me there. Well done.
It's a little bit into June, so we're not going to. We could. You can set deals up, obviously, can't you, before the window opens? You can get them in place, but you can't actually sign them and announce them until then. But that will be the next thing. And as ever, there will be and as ever, anybody we sign, people will say, "Oh, great signing! Yeah, he's going to be straight into the team." Well, in fact, some of them we may sign a few that actually don't get into the team. It's the nature of it, isn't it? I saw a piece actually. I can't remember if it was today or it might have been yesterday that. With some figures in. Last summer we signed 15 players and let 13 go. Previous summer we signed 14 and let 11 go. It surprised me it was that many actually. I don't kind of remember it being that many in either summer. I think the manager is suggesting he wants that number to be lower year on year, really. So fewer comings and goings this summer and then even fewer again next summer as you get the players you want, put them on long contracts and hopefully keep them.
Yes.
But having said that, we'll now probably go and sign 16 this summer, won't we?
Well, the most predictable thing that happens when the transfer window opens is that Andy Cullen and John Messino join forces and say that we won't be doing any business until towards the end.
Yes, that's right. Got to be patient. Yeah.
And then, if you remember last time, they said that, and then 10 minutes later we signed 3 blokes. I can't remember exactly who, but but they do try to make sure that we don't get all worked up.
Yeah, they calm the fever, don't they, a little bit in terms of what we should be expecting, but then hopefully pull 1 or 2 crackers out of the bag as well.
Okay, looking forward already to talking to you next week, Steve. This will be available as a podcast and also right across our output. Thank you as always for your wit and wisdom and
no problem.
And your your depth of knowledge, and have a good week.
Say so.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
You too. Look forward to it.
Cheers.